Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to the show. Welcome back. We careen towards the end of the year, and today we are covering a film that IMDb has in the top 10 of all time. You heard me correctly. It's Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's coup de grace. I don't know what that means. I'm excited about the show.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Haha. When you weren't here, Marissa did the haha.
She did.
She did it.
Well, I heard she also tried to do the pitch, but I guess
She
I
did
didn't
the
get
tiger
to the
girl
episode.
She killed it on both accounts. I was really impressed, really proud of her. What's up, everybody? It's Action Movie Anatomy. We're back. We're here. It's Thursday. Pulp Fiction. Big stuff. Getting towards the end of the year. Just we got jet lag. Walking jet lag over here.
I am literally the living definition of jet lag right now, but I'm here and I'm alive and we're talking Pulp Fiction. I'm feeling good.
Yeah.
Happy to be back. I watched both the episodes. I guess I just didn't tune into the very end of the pitch with Marissa doing the growl.
The Kevin and Marissa was terrific. It's Marissa Serafini we're referring to. She's actually up in the booth today, Marissa. How are you?
Which is not above us.
Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back, Andrew. Yeah, I someone had to do it because Andrew wasn't there.
No,
right.
I was really impressed. The haha it did it for me.
Thank you. I tried.
That was Ben's fist pump moment of the episode.
That was my fist pump moment. Guys, it's Action Movie Anatomy. We're here. We're talking Pulp Fiction. We talk action movies on this show here on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies and all things movie related, as well as pop culture by the bucketful. Would we have ever covered Pulp Fiction by the original definition of the rules? Because we're about to go through them.
I 100% believe that no, or else we would have covered it already, right? Like, we've done almost 3 years of shows. This movie is, we love this movie. It is so widely adored, and I feel like we would have 100% just covered it if it felt like, because it doesn't feel like one of our classic movies.
But it is pretty actiony. It has a lot of it definitely has a lot of violence.
Yeah,
it has
there's
a lot of
tension and
there's lots of shooting. It's like there's hitmen. I mean, it's pretty actiony. I guess it's more crime than it's action.
Yeah,
but it still does have a lot of things. So the rules on Action Movie Anatomy that we usually, our movies that we cover tend to adhere to 4 basic rules. Rule number 1: the hero always plays by their own rules. If you had to pick, is there a hero? Is there a hero?
I think it's got to be Willis. He's got to be, because he's the only guy that plays by his own rules. He's like out on his own. He's going up against the bigger force, the entity in Marsellus Wallace.
I think he's my least favorite character in the whole movie.
Really?
I think so.
Just because, why?
I don't know. We'll talk about it a little more. We'll probably do some funny stuff with star profiles today, guys. Maybe extend it a little, because obviously it's a huge cast. They're all very important, and they were all at very significant moments in their career. So, but maybe he's the hero. I mean, I think you could also kind of say Vincent in some way.
Nothing like having an Asian mother.
Yeah.
It's like, why isn't the show live at 2?
Yeah.
Like, still keeping me in check, Mom. Thank you.
I wasn't already sweating. I'm now sweating.
Yes.
I think you could sort of make an argument for a bunch of the characters. I think like Jules, you can make an argument that he's the hero because he's pretty awesome and he's like the guy that comes to the light at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Willis. I mean, he's sort
Vega. It's tough for it to be Vega just because he dies so soon.
Yeah, right. I mean, in the context of the actual story, does he die soon? I guess he dies.
He's about halfway through, a little over halfway, I guess.
Well, I guess in the context of the story, it's after. Wait, how does that even work?
It's after he dances.
Because Vincent's in the
he's in
t-shirt when he sees him at the bar when he's agreeing to take the fall.
Right.
But then he kills him
because he doesn't take the fall. Right, so they get sent to his house.
Yeah, but so I guess that's the last.
We have seen this movie.
So I guess in sequence though, that's the last thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not. I guess it just doesn't feel like he's.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's still kind of in the middle of the movie when he dies.
It's hard to explain it, but for some reason, because I was telling you this earlier. Well, why don't we just jump into our thesis statements? I think that'll actually be. All right, we got to do the rules, the trailer. Yeah. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've been here.
Yeah, the hero always plays by their own rules, depending on who the hero is. If it is Willis, which I think is a strong argument, then he does. Willis does play. Exactly. He's 100% plays by his own rules. Rule number 2, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people in the room. Again, it's so hard to even determine who the villain is. Maybe it's Marsellus Wallace. I'm not really sure.
Is it just the creepy dudes at the end? Yeah, it's gotta be Zed.
Rule number 3, the movie is driven by police, military, political, or mercenary figure. There are a lot of criminals, a lot of mercenaries. 2 hitmen are the opening.
Yeah, that's fair.
Characters.
Yeah,
they do feel like they're what drive the movie. Jules and Vincent.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why it's hard. Excuse me. It's like hard to stay latched on to one person because it just moves so much.
Right.
And like who you care about, who's the center of attention, who you think the main. I mean, like when Mia Wallace comes in, you feel like she's going to be a big part of the movie.
Yep.
Right? For a long time, but she really just has kind of her moment, and then she's gone.
Yep.
So, I guess Marsellus is the villain. Zed's the villain.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the basis of the idea that there's a hero and a villain in this movie doesn't really work. And rule number 4, the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. There's not really an explosion. There's a car crashes and shooting, but there's
Explosion
not
of
like a
heroin.
Yeah, that's a crazy scene.
Adrenaline.
So I think from that point of view, it definitely kind of misses. It doesn't really quite hit the rules. We are going to get into all of the things that you guys know and love today on the show. Quick Patreon shout out. We've got
I'm back.
Ava Megiesi Sumegi and Emmanuel Steinberg. Ava, I am so sorry.
Ava,
I don't know how to say your name.
At least Ben did it because I would have done it worse. Somehow you are much better at pronouncing difficult names than I am.
Is that a thing?
It's
Should
a
you
thing.
be better?
I should be better at it because I'm now worldly. I've traveled.
Andrew's back from Tokyo. He was in Tokyo.
I was in Tokyo. I'm in the live chat too, guys. I see that you're in here. You're all chatting. I'm having a hard time keeping up with it. I can't read anymore.
I'm drawing stars. I'm drawing stars. So yeah, guys, that's kind of the rules of the show. That's the Patreon shout out. If you want to follow along in the conversation, you can follow along in the live chat. Leave your thoughts below, your comments. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media, Twitter and Instagram. Obviously, always tweet at me, share your thoughts. It's my favorite thing to do is to interact with you guys. Drew, where can the folks find you?
Yeah, I like Twitter more and more.
Yeah,
I've started to like it a lot more.
Well, it's sweet when the more
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I was gonna say
once people care,
the more traction, the more followers you get, the better it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And
100%.
just like I'm like following more people I find more interesting.
Yeah,
anyway, you can find me at Andrew Guy. There's also Team Action Show, which is the one for this show. What do you want to say to me? You think you're better than me with your blue check mark? You're thousands of followers more than me. You think that's cool? You know what? We're gonna hop right into the trailer.
Let me just make sure that we're not missing anything else here. Guys, we're going to hop into the trailer. Actually, wait, you know what? Coming up today on the show.
Okay, all right.
There's a thing here on the outline that says tease segments, Andrew. You wrote the outline.
I wrote it. I've written all of them.
Yes, guys, coming up today on the show, we're going to be talking about our top 3 favorite John Travolta roles. We're going to be doing an extended version of Star Profiles because we want to talk about more of the characters and the actors that are in this movie. AMA questions, though I didn't see any that really, like, I feel like we're going to answer most of them throughout the context of the show.
I put one in here, but it's like a very broad one.
Yeah.
From Ryan.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's going to do that. Let's watch the trailer for the show.
Come on, let's get in character. Why are you so interested in Big Man's wife? Well, he's going out of town in Florida, and he asked me if I'd take care of her while he's gone. Take care? No, man. Just show her a good time, make sure she don't get lonely. Girl, you see,
Soundtrack.
this is a moral test of oneself.
I do believe Marsellus, my husband, your boss, told you to take me out and do whatever I wanted.
I had forgotten that he has that moment in the bathroom where he has to like talk
Night
himself
of the
in.
fight, you may feel
Like
a
while
slight
she's
sting.
dying.
Pride only hurts. It never helps. In the fifth, your
I can't really hear myself in my headphones either.
I have to say,
Are you number 1?
did you get burned?
Does it say on the mic right here?
3. The mic.
We're in a lot of danger, aren't we?
Is that better?
I think so. Yeah.
Terrific.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
What a weird trailer.
Got a corpse in a car.
At least it's like more interesting than a lot of the trailers at this time.
Yeah.
It shows a lot. It does. But you would have such a hard time understanding what the hell was going
Yeah.
You
on.
hate that?
There's like no context for anything.
Uncomfortable silences.
John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson.
That
Uma
shot right
Thurman,
there.
Harvey
That's the
Keitel,
one. It's like
the
he
shot.
Amanda Plummer, Maria de Medeiros, Ving Rhames, Eric Stoltz, Rosanna Arquette, Christopher Walken,
You forget that.
I forget it's Eric Stoltz.
Yeah.
Ain't my friend Looker.
a new film directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Talk about an exciting movie. Like,
Pulp Fiction.
You really thinking about quitting?
There's not that many movies you can talk about that
Basically, I'm just gonna walk there. What you mean walk
that just changed cinema forever. Like,
Kung Fu.
it's a rare movie, like, in terms of the way that it affects the generation, the way that it affects the landscape of cinema.
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction is, I think the reason it's so high on that list is for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't think I'm actually going to stick with what I was saying.
Your initial thesis?
Yeah, because my initial thesis was that, well, guys, this is thesis statement. We're going to hop into that. This is your big, bold thought about the show. If you were at a party, a Pulp Fiction party, and you only got to say one thing all night, well, first of all, the party kind of sucks.
Yeah.
If you can only say one thing. But this would be the one thing that you would say about the film. And I was going to say that it's Quentin Tarantino's most overrated film.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say that when it has so much critical acclaim and it's been mocked, mimicked, spoofed so many times. The, Mia Wallace, as you're going to say, comes up so often. Like, it's really hard to say that. And it's a really good movie. It's not the number 8th movie of all time.
But what is?
Exactly. What I think it is for me, I have the hardest time really holding on to this movie through the entirety of it.
Yep.
It's a little long, not long in the sense of like, you're like, God, will this end? But it's a little long for it to not have just like a main protagonist and like a bad guy, I think.
2.5 hours long. It's a very long movie.
And it's almost like 2.5 hours of Seinfeld, right? Where it's like a bunch of different stories that kind of don't really matter, but then they all kind of come together, but they don't really have to.
Right.
For me, it's got to be his hardest film to latch and stay onto. And I know that's like a kind of a weird statement.
Yeah.
But I don't have that with any of the other ones. Even like Kill Bill 2, which isn't even half as interesting, or some people think is more interesting than Kill Bill 1. But even that one that's like a little less action-driven. Inglourious Bastards, Django, all these movies, I have such an easier time like sitting down at the beginning, following what's going on, and it ending. Whereas with Pulp Fiction, I think I've seen the beginning of it, the first half, maybe like 50 times.
Yeah.
I think I've seen the last half of it maybe like 5.
I mean, I feel the exact same way. I think I've seen literally through the scene that Christopher Walken comes into the screen.
It's always that one. It feels like a break in the movie.
Yeah, right. I think it's because they set up the world, these wonderful characters, this dialogue. Like, obviously, the opening sequence is great, and then you have the stuff with Jules and Vincent, which the reason they feel like they drive the movie and that like they're the characters is because it's so appealing and so cool, and the dialogue's so good. It's so tight. It's
so well written, and fresh, yes.
And it just feels so real. And then for it to transition from that to the Mia Wallace date, which becomes the most iconic sequence of the movie for so many reasons.
Which is so crazy because it's like the opening sequence, even the opening sequence in the diner.
Yeah.
And then the opening sequence in the apartment.
And you get a little bit of Butch in there. You meet him quickly, but it's by the time that the adrenaline needle scene wraps and you hear the Fox Force 5 joke that it's an hour 4 into the movie, and that's when it breaks to the walk-in story. And I found myself this time watching it, and like it does feel like a break. It feels like the movie shifts right there.
Yeah, it feels like it's like this. You're watching the second half of a different movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it is negative on the film. It's just definitely, I think what you're saying is true, which is that I think a lot of people when they watch this movie kind of feel that way. And 2.5 hours is a long movie. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the truth.
Yeah, 2.5 hours is a very long movie. And yeah, like I said, it does feel like it's a break and then the end of a different film that's like in the same world.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to say that for my thesis statement, Mia Wallace is the most iconic Halloween costume to come out of a film in our lifetime. I should say female Halloween costume because like superheroes.
Right.
You can say Wonder Woman, but like really people weren't dressing up as Wonder Woman until like a year or two ago. Mia Wallace has been a Halloween costume every single Halloween, every year of my entire life.
Like even the most goody two-shoes girl will wear a cocaine-riddled, blood-stained shirt
with the blood spot. Maybe even you might even get the
needle. Yeah.
And always like the makeup running down, the Mia Wallace wig. It's just like the staple Halloween costume, no matter what. And I think
every
now,
single year you'll see at least like 10 of them.
Instagram generation has made it like just it is outrageous. I mean,
hashtag Mia Wallace. I guarantee there's just thousands upon thousands.
Yeah, you could. I mean, yeah, Marissa, if you want to look up hashtag Mia Wallace on Instagram and put that up on the screen, I'd be shocked if you didn't get just like thousands and thousands of pictures. So it's kind of a strange thesis, but I thought about it as I was watching it, and I really, maybe you can't do it because you got to log in or whatever. But yeah, just thinking about like how funny that is that this is a movie from 1994. Most of the people that are dressing up as Mia Wallace, I feel like almost don't even know who Mia Wallace is.
Yeah, I bet you most of them haven't even seen the movie.
Yeah, or if they have, it's like because of the Halloween costumes, they know that it's iconic. that's probably, I mean, that kind of plays nicely into the next part of the conversation, which is what we were saying, that this movie changed cinema forever. And I think it's because relevance, significance is what is so important in art. It's like what really makes something important. Like in the same way that we talked about watching Ocean's 11 feels cool, makes you feel cool. But Ocean's 11 didn't like have iconic imagery that stuck with people. It just was good actors at a great time in movies, and it's a fun movie to watch. But there's not a lot about that movie that people like really stuck with. This movie has like a lot of things that has stuck with people, like something like Mia Wallace, or the style of dialogue. Like,
yeah, the way, like everything, like my favorite lines are very, very simple, and they're not really like some of the, because there's some really deep, intelligent things that Tarantino always has that in his script, but he also has just cool shit.
Right.
Like he just says cool shit. And like that for me in this film, that's what really stands out with me. Like even just in the beginning when he's like talking about it being in the same ballpark. He's like, it's not the same ballpark, not even the same field, not even the same sport. Yeah, not even the same league. Like you're like,
totally.
Damn, like that's something that people have said a million times, but never quite like that.
Yeah.
You know? And there, I mean, it's just a testament to Tarantino's writing. Like, he truly is one of the greatest writers that's ever lived. And whether it comes from building tension, which he does, I think, better than anyone. I think Tarantino builds tension better than anyone.
Oh, man, the tension in the adrenaline scene is like...
The tension in the adrenaline scene, but even in the very opening scene, or the second scene, you know, when they're walking through, and maybe it's because you know now... Because I know when I watched it originally as a kid, I didn't know they were going to go kill somebody.
Yeah, right.
Because like I didn't know who Tarantino was.
Yeah, you do, and you're not totally sure they're hitmen yet. Like,
yeah, but when you get older, or you like learn Tarantino and you know him as a director, you're like, okay, there's no way that these guys aren't going to do something intense right now, you know.
And Inglourious Bastard starts out that same way.
Same way, and there's also the scene in the basement. But yeah, like, and then I love that they get to the door. And he's like 7:22. He's like, not time yet. And then they go over and they just keep talking the same conversation they were having. It's just so brilliantly written.
Yeah, there's camera work in this movie too that has always stuck with me. I mean, and like, again, guys, there's a lot to talk about. So I think before we just harp on the every bit of the movie, we should continue kind of going through the format here.
That's what this show is, right?
Opportunities to talk about different things. Let's get into fist pump moment, because I think this is a good one.
Okay.
And I think each of us, we can sort of take the moment and then expound on that storyline.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what yours is.
So fist pump moment is that moment when you're watching a movie, something kind of happens, and you want to look around and just be like, are you seeing this right now? This is so good. I'm so excited I get to watch the rest of this movie right now. And, you know, for me, it's funny watching it now versus watching it as a kid. As a kid, I was so influenced by my older brother. He loved this movie. And my dad loved this movie. We had the soundtrack. We listened to the soundtrack when I was a kid probably 500 times. I know every word to every song on the soundtrack like the back of my hand. But this time through, it was very clear to me that the Travolta Mia Wallace storyline, and specifically the dancing, that's the fist pump moment for me. It was just like... Because you realize as you get so much further away from Travolta's iconic status in the 70s, the fact that he was basically not in movies in the 80s, that Tarantino resurrected him for this movie, and that she's like, I want to dance. And he's like, no way. And she's like, you're going to show me a good time. I want to dance. I want to win. They get up there and they start dancing, and it's so clear immediately. He's like such a good dancer.
His hips start moving, the foot starts shaking. You're like, oh God, that's so funny. That's my fist pump too. My fist pump's actually the moment when they get on the stage, and there's this silence when he's taking off his shoes, because you realize she's taking off her shoes, and like you can hear the rustling, kind of the chatter of the people. And I don't know why, because I know exactly what's coming next. They're literally just gonna dance for like 30 seconds, and it's like the most simple like little jig. I love it.
It was just, it makes me appreciate the iconic nature of really, truly great movie scenes in this way where you're like, this is a part of culture.
It's like, why? What is it about this scene that's so monumental that you and I both, in a Tarantino Pulp Fiction, like one of the greatest movies of all time, why do we both care so much about this dancing scene?
I don't know. I think it has style. It's sexy. Their chemistry is really, really well built. There's something about the fact that they show him shooting up, which is a really hard to watch scene. Honestly,
they do it to like they make it, he does it to music, and he makes it like almost he makes it almost cool.
Yeah,
you know,
like I mean, heroin is something that you don't see, like the blood going in the syringe. I mean, it's like really,
it's very real.
And they show you that, and so he's sort of out of it, and they start dancing, and you just kind of can feel that he's like super high. There's something.
And then she comes back from the restroom and she's super high. You know, it's right after the awkward pause.
it's just, I don't know what it was, but it just was one of those things where it made me remember that there are things that come out, and 25 years ago, there's no way that you would watch this movie and go like, in 25 years, people are going to be watching this scene, and they're going to feel like it's one of the greatest scenes of all time. You would have just been like, this is an awesome movie, in the same way that, you know, when we watch Arrival or we watch Drive or some other movie that feels really cool and unique, you're like, this is great, people will remember it.
And you would also think that it's actually the scene right afterwards, right? Like it's the heart attack, like drug overdose, adrenaline scene. That scene is savage, and that scene is still absolutely incredible. As are a ton of this, which I was also going to say, maybe Christopher Walken is the greatest like one-scener ever. Between this and True Romance, you're just like, how is this? Yeah, how's this a real thing? But yeah, man, I don't know what it is, and I watched it like 3 times in a row because I'm just like, there's something. So it's like the whole $5 milkshake and everything they have. It's just so brilliantly written and put together. It's like a dance. You don't really understand why, and it's also so nice.
They set the tension up for their date. Like, that's why the first hour of this movie feels so masterful. They set up the tension of their date when he's like, I hear you're taking Mia out, and he's like, you know, what the fuck is everybody asking about, you know? And like the thing with Antoine Rakihara and the foot massage, and then he asks her about it.
I love her response too. She's like, the only people that know why Marcellus threw Tony out that window is Marcellus and Tony. Yeah, and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, she knows what's up. Yeah. Some of the things people are talking about. And Vincent shoots Marvin in the face.
I love his. He's so like, they're hitmen. Yeah. So he's like, oh, I shot Marvin in the face, man. He's not like, oh my so god.
Calm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of my favorite. Like, oh shit, we're gonna deal with this. That first shot to the dude on the couch.
Oh yeah,
is gnarly.
Yeah, just like, in the stomach.
Yeah,
right?
Just out of nowhere, just kills him. I mean, like, he probably dies slowly, but it's just like, oh shit, this movie's just got really real.
Oh yeah.
Let's see, the moment when Vincent shoots him in the face, the headshot in the car. Yeah, Mr. Wolfe is my fist pump. Is that the dude that cleans everything up?
Yeah, that's Harvey Keitel. Yeah.
And speech by Jules, of course. Anytime Tim Roth says "honey bunny," yeah, and then a lot of people have said when Willis decides to save Marcellus and he picks his weapon.
It's a good fist pump.
It's sweet,
and their relationship and everything is cool. Yeah, this movie has a lot going on. So I think let's continue moving through. But it is interesting. You know, we're going to talk about Travolta and Uma Thurman, both their careers here in Star Profile. So it'll give us an opportunity to talk about them a little. But so you know, there were 3 Oscar nominations for this film in the acting department.
I know, it almost feels wrong that I didn't put Samuel on here.
Yeah, we'll add him. We'll add him. And so, really, we'll talk about these 4 people. You know, John Travolta, Bruce Willis, Uma Thurman, Sam Jackson. And there's other stars, but they're the 4 that you're really following. So Travolta is the most interesting because he had basically famously been a late 70s guy that had come out. You know, he had been in Welcome Back, Kotter, which was a TV show in the 70s. It was a pretty big deal, and he was kind of a big deal. He was this young, sexy guy, butt chin, the whole deal. And he gets Grease.
The greatest butt chin.
He gets Saturday Night Fever first. And it's this big movie, you know, this theme song.
I Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, I changed the world.
I changed the world. Okay, Robert Shapiro.
Yeah. And then a few years later, he does Grease, and he really becomes like... It is the rare perfect storm when a guy who has sex appeal can also dance. Channing Tatum had that. Women absolutely
they lose it.
They love it. You become this kind of icon.
I don't know if you know this about me. I did a improv striptease show for a while, and I've experienced the same thing that they did.
There was this woman that worked at the theater.
His name was Chuck.
And he had that in the late 70s, and it was a big deal. And he, as we know from the stories, he kind of bought into his own hype a little too much.
Yeah, a little. I mean, that's probably the most delicate way of putting it, generous way.
And his 80s are pretty bad. I mean, he's an urban cowboy right around the turn to the 80s, and then he doesn't really do much of anything in the 80s that anyone cares about.
Yeah.
And
Look Who's Talking?
Yeah, and that's 91. That's 93.
Oh, right.
So his 3 films are Look Who's Talking 93, Shout 91, Eyes of an Angel 91. These are not movies that anyone's really watched.
You can just tell by the names they're bad.
Yeah, exactly. Look Who's Talking is kind of, maybe he was making waves, maybe he's coming back, who knows, he had a good relationship, something, but this movie is his big comeback, because the rest of his 90s, he becomes this kind of smooth villain, you know, or like this fast talking guy, because you know Get Shorty is a couple years after this, you know, and then he's in Broken Arrow, and he's like his 90s are pretty good.
Yeah, no, his 90s are sweet. Broken Arrow, Face Off,
and then there's Phenomenon Michael,
yeah. City of Angels.
No, that's the.
Is that Cage?
Yeah,
that's Cage with Meg Ryan.
There's one you're thinking.
Yeah,
I can't think what it is, but
God, what is it?
So that's Travolta. Now Sam Jackson on the other side of the coin. I'm gonna just.
You want to pull him up? You're gonna. Okay. You want to? We can talk. We'll just wait.
Yeah,
we'll just wait because
I'll pull that up. I have him right here. So Sam Jackson had been in Goodfellas in 1990. That's the thing. That's the thing that I can remember from memory, which is, you know, he's a small part, plays Stax. He doesn't have a lot to do in the movie, but he wasn't really a somebody yet. And this is, you know, just a few years later. So right before Pulp Fiction, his movies are. Let's see here. He does. God, so many movies. Good Lord.
Oh, he does an insane amount of work.
The ones I would say that matter the most, he's in this film called Fresh in 1994 where he plays the father, I believe. Loaded Weapon 1 he's in, and True Romance. And then Jurassic Park, Menace to Society, he's the dad, Amos and Andrew. So he was definitely in a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. He was like working, but he wasn't yet somebody that people were like, oh, that guy's a great actor.
Yeah, because he hadn't like... You see that transition moment for so many of these guys, and like... I just want to use Denzel as an example just because he's also very similar in the type of swagger he brings to the screen.
Yeah.
Even when he was young, he had it, but it was much more tuned. It was like kept in line. It was like it was kind of like subtle there. Yeah. And then he hit his moment like they both did.
Yeah.
You know, Sam Jackson in Pulp Fiction, where it was like, no. This is like the guy I can be just for ever.
Right.
And like I'm the best at it.
Yeah, right. Like this is the best version of if I'm sort of exaggerating me.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. And I mean, him as Jules, you know, there's an argument that for career-defining role, if we wanted to have that conversation, which I don't think we will, there's an argument that Jules is Sam Jackson's career-defining role.
I mean, we could have it, like, really quickly off the cuff. I mean, what else would it be? Snakes on a Plane?
I mean, I think it's probably, like, it probably is this movie. I mean, he's, like...
It has to be.
As Mr. Glass, he's, like, he has, like, a sequel coming out.
And, like, I'm sure the sequel's going to be sweet. Like, it looks good. So, like, that could be a big one. And then... Is it Mace Windu?
Yeah, I mean, Mace Windu is like, you know, Star Wars movies are huge. I think, you know, playing Frozone is a pretty big one.
Guys in the chat, let us know what you think his career-defining role is.
But yeah, I mean, I think this is the movie. Like we were saying.
Oh yeah, Nick Fury is probably
Nick Fury now. Yeah, actually, I agree. That's 100% what it is.
That is.
But there's the shot in the trailer when he's delivering the Ezekiel 25:17 speech.
The turn.
I think it's right when he's saying, "And I will strike down with great vengeance and furious anger." I think that's the line. I'm almost sure.
Vengeance and furious anger. Yeah, it's so
this
sick.
Turn where you see him and you see his eyes. You see that shot in the trailer, and it gets like they show that little clip a lot when people talk about Sam Jackson. Mm-hmm. And there's just something about the way it was captured. It's very iconic. It's very memorable, and you know. This is the only Oscar nom he's ever gotten. I'm almost certain. I don't think I have to look that up. He's not the kind of guy that gets nominated for Oscars usually. This is before the world realized that he was going to do his shtick for a long time. And I think even he realized that he was going to do his shtick for a long time.
I mean, when you watch this movie, it's like you want him to do his shtick forever, right? Like you just want that to be who he's going to be in films because you watch the opening and like no matter how many times we've seen that opening, no matter how many times it's been parodied, it doesn't lose its anything. It's oomph. Like even the biting of the burger, the drinking, he's like, can I have a sip to wash down that burger?
Yeah.
And he just...
tasty beverage,
the whole thing,
and
you're just like, there's something even just about that you're like,
that's an I drink your milkshake moment.
Yeah, it's like you're the bitch in this house now. This is my fucking house.
Well, also, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Is a great moment. That whole entire thing is just he just owns that scene.
I have to say, so there's still moments in movies that I watch and I get like a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because like. Even though I know everything that's going to happen, I know he shoots the guy on the couch first. I know that he gets through the speech. I know he blows him away. Like I know all these things, but every time I watch a Tarantino scene like that, one of his tension-building scenes, I still get nervous.
Right.
Even this one, which I've seen so many freaking times.
Yeah.
That's something I think is amazing.
Don't you love it also just before they go in, where he looks at Vince and he goes, okay, let's get into character.
Yes!
Yeah.
Yes, because they're just bullshitting.
Yeah.
They're just bullshitting. And
they're just dudes that, like, talk about hamburgers in the car and, like, they're, you know, like, that's it. they're literally just regular guys that happen to kill people for a living, but in that scene they have to be like super menacing.
Yeah, and I love the whole time. I mean, Vincent's probably just high on heroin, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
right.
He's just chilling when he opens the case, and instead of just like what someone would do now, or a worser writer, and just like they'd bring out their guns and cock them real quick, or put their silencer on.
Yeah,
it's just so much more effective.
Oh, it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many moments, right? Look at the big brain on Brad.
Yeah.
He's just great.
Like, I don't remember asking you a damn goddamn thing. You're like,
does he look like a bitch?
Like,
Amazing. One of the great movie scenes. Just the first hour of this movie is so good. Now let's talk Willis for a second. So, of the guys in the movie,
he's the most famous, right? At the time,
he's the biggest star when they make it.
Yeah,
he's coming off of in 1994. He's coming off of 2 Die Hard movies, some other bad movies in here, right? Like Striking Distance is the year before. Death Becomes Her in 92. The Player, he's just got a small role in 92.
I love Death Becomes You.
Death Becomes Her?
I mean, Death Becomes Her, yeah.
I've never watched it. You've watched it?
Yeah, it's just one of those movies.
Okay.
Ones that I've seen.
But he was like, I mean, he was in Hudson Hawk around the same time. Like, he was definitely a guy that had, he looked like he was sort of on his shit, but I don't think Bruce Willis really became the Bruce Willis, the like, I can top line any movie and I've been doing it for a long time, until actually the latter half of the 90s. Like, I think the Sixth Sense era Bruce Willis is the biggest. I think Die Hard Bruce Willis.
Rising.
Yeah, there you go.
I love that movie.
The
Jackal.
Is he in The Jackal? Oh, that's Richard Gere.
Oh, that's Richard Gere and Willis. Is he the cop?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He goes so back and forth between being good and bad. Yeah, and like, it's interesting that you think he's the least enjoyable character in the movie.
I just like him the least. I think he's kind of.
He just fills a role.
Yeah. Well, okay. So he's sort of annoying because he's like just driven by his like stupid pride,
right?
And like that makes him. And like, yeah, and he's not that likable. Like, that's kind of annoying. He's also like screaming at his girlfriend, like throwing TVs.
Yeah.
He seems kind of borderline abusive, it feels like.
Definitely.
He
just seems like a bad dude.
He seems like a bad guy.
Yeah,
he has no remorse about killing this other boxer.
Yep.
He just sucks. Like, that's the thing, is I don't watch him and feel like he's awesome. Also, I think it's really funny that he's a boxer.
Yeah.
He, like, his body is like...
Yeah. Well, it's also like, you watch Creed 1, though. It's like Pretty Ricky Conlan's body compared to Michael B. Jordan's is like astronomically worse.
And Pretty Ricky's a real fighter.
And he's like a real, exactly. He's a real fighter. So, and then the last person we have, of course, is Uma.
Uma Thurman, who this really is Uma Thurman's breakout.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that this was her. She had done basically nothing before this. She'd done like TV shows, short movies, and then she'd done even Cowgirls Get the Blues in '93, Mad Dog and Gloria in '93, and also Jennifer 8. So if you're Uma Thurman, you're like loving life right now. Even before Pulp Fiction, you're like, holy shit, I got two movies in the same year. I worked last year.
Yeah.
And then Quentin Tarantino calls you. You know.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were
didn't go
friends
that way,
beforehand. They became very good friends, obviously, and then over the years, like, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened, and we've all seen, like, last year, or maybe it was this year, when that whole story broke about Kill Bill in the car and all that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of controversy about it, but I mean, Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace is like, she's on the cover of the movie. It's such an iconic character. You know what? Crazy to think she's had 2 of the most visually iconic female characters in the history of film.
Absolutely, and they're both written by Tarantino.
The yellow jumpsuit and her just look as Mia Wallace. They're both like so referenced.
It's really hard to pick which one it would be. It feels like it's got to be Pulp probably, but it's so tough
to say
because like she literally carries all of Kill Bill 1 and 2, but she also has the most iconic scenes in this movie, which is maybe definitely the biggest thing he's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think like when we talked about this, when we talked about what this did for films, and a lot of you guys know this already, but we can sort of just go into it for a quick second because we're going to get into production development here. Well, before we do all that, I do want to give a quick shout out. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/teamaction.
Yes.
Drew and I do extra content there every week. We do Skype phone calls with like some of the generals in the Army. We do Schmodown behind the scenes reactions. A ton of fun stuff though. Patreon.com/teamaction. Donate $1, whatever you want.
We need to still get that Endgame trailer reaction in as soon as possible.
Drew's been in Tokyo.
Yeah,
we've been behind.
I've been all over the place.
Those of you that are listening or watching that know that, just give us a little patience. We'll catch up soon. But
We have one that we're releasing like today, right?
Yeah, it's like a David Fincher, The Social Network.
Yeah, mini AMA on Social Network. So as you guys know, Ben and I love and adore that movie. So we'll get a quick AMA episode on that.
But yeah, so I think talking about production development, this is written by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary. Roger Avary, very famously good friend of Quentin Tarantino's. They had worked together for a long time. Lawrence Bender, listed as the producer on this film, another guy who was an early collaborator with Tarantino. There's many stories written about this era in film, their collaborations, how this stuff happened. Lawrence Bender, I think there was like a lot of drama. I seem to remember reading about it at one point, and Roger Avary ended up doing another film called Killing Zoe shortly thereafter. That was kind of a, like another crime sort of movie. But when we say this changed films, really, like why that is with Reservoir Dogs, he introduced this nonlinear storytelling style that he wanted to use. And with Pulp Fiction, he sort of just blended everything. He blended his ability to write perfect, immaculate dialogue, create these really well fleshed out characters without really exposition at all.
Yes.
He doesn't use exposition at all.
And I love that so much about him.
Yeah, he really, it's all in the dialogue. There's no voiceover. It's just people talking and things happening, and that's informing you what the movie's about. And on top of that, you have this like sort of non-linear, super cool, very violent, lots of swearing, incredibly realistic crime feeling. And it influenced an entire generation of filmmakers. I mean, I have to think that Christopher Nolan took an enormous amount of inspiration from Tarantino's nonlinear storytelling.
Oh, 100%. I think Taylor Sheridan probably took a ton as well from his nonlinear storytelling and tension building.
Yeah.
Like he's very good at that. I mean, how could you not? And he's admitted to being like one of the biggest copycats of all time.
He steals everything.
And he's fine with admitting that.
Yeah.
Because as long as you do what he does and you steal the things that work and make it your own, it works. And so, and just to talk about Lawrence Bender just a little bit more, he's a guy that's been nominated 36 times, like in his movies in producing, and he's won 8 Oscars, and like he did Good Will Hunting and Inglourious Bastards and Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of a heavy hitter in the business. Just to touch on him a little bit more.
Maybe I'm mixing up Lawrence Bender and Roger Avary then, because I always thought Lawrence Bender was the guy that he had worked with early, that he had like real issues with, who had been like a bit of a drug addict.
Yeah, that must be Avary.
That must be Roger Avary. Yeah.
And then you talk about this movie critically, which we're going to get into critical and box office in a second. But since the writing and stuff is behind this, this is Tarantino. He wins for this, for winning best screenplay
for
writing, and then Sam Jackson gets his only nomination ever.
Yep.
And it doesn't really win anything. Or what else? It wins like one more. No, that's the only award it wins.
Writing, yeah. Famously, it's. I mean, 1994, guys. A lot of you know this, but 1994 is this incredible stacked year at the Oscars. Pulp Fiction loses, and I would argue that Pulp Fiction is the third best movie that year. Right. Because Forrest Gump wins, and I think you can pretty clearly argue that Forrest Gump's a better movie.
I love Forrest Gump.
It's like one of the all-time movies. I mean, you could say Pulp Fiction if you want, and then Shawshank Redemption is also that year, which is like astounding.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption is the best movie. I think Shawshank Redemption is the best movie. So I think like maybe Pulp's the second or third best movie that year, but Quiz Show is also that year, and I want to say maybe Bullets Over Broadway is the 5th movie.
And then like all the acting nominations it gets with Travolta and Jackson and Thurman.
Yeah.
It's just and her getting it for such a short.
Yeah.
I mean, she kills it.
Yeah.
She's so good in that scene.
She's amazing. Oh yeah. I mean, all of them. It's amazing. So this movie and just sort of what it did, it's like stylistically, nothing like this had ever happened before. This inspired a whole entire kind of generation of writers and bloggers, and the idea that you could write and direct your own intense, cool crime movie. Like, it really, truly, if you look at the next 10 years, all these movies, 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, and
just like
Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, and Killing Zoe, and like all these movies that just wanted to be Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, there's so many like cool, trying to be funny, like wannabe crime thrillers that don't ever actually hit. So that being said, we're talking a lot about, I mean, obviously this is the movie we're supposed to be talking about, but let's talk about Travolta real quick. Let's talk about our favorite 3 roles from John Travolta.
Oh yeah,
because he kind of sucks, dude.
Yeah, he's not a good actor in most things.
Yeah, he's like, and you grow up with him. Like, again, I grew up with a family of 4 women, and my mom was in love with John Travolta, and like thought he was so gorgeous and loved the way that he danced. And it was like, I had this idolization of him as this great man.
Yeah.
Like, probably the same way you looked at Swayze, I looked at Travolta.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I was like, but he just kind of sucks.
The video of him doing the junket interview for The Punisher, talking about changing film and changing the world is pretty amazing.
You're just like, dude, get over yourself.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do his top 3 roles.
Each of us just pick our favorites.
Yeah, and I just changed it to roles instead of movies because I have to throw in. The People versus O.J. Simpson, him as Robert Shapiro.
Yeah, he's great. He's great in that.
Is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best acting he's ever done in his career. But then you tell me that he just sounds like that at the press junket, and he says the things that he says, and I'm like, oh, so that's just you.
My number 1 is obviously going to be Ryder from The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
I knew it. I knew it. I was like,
not because I think he's really that good. I just love that movie.
You just
and love
that movie.
I think, by the way,
you're a goddamn hero, Garber.
You're my goddamn hero, Garber. For the action guys, we've been talking about various episode ideas and things to do. I think we definitely need to do an episode on our most guilty pleasure underrated movies. Like literally an episode talking about the movies that only we love. Like no one else loves that movie.
No one else loves The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
No one else loves The Weatherman like I love it.
Oh yeah.
I think there's a whole episode about this because like both of us have those movies that just
Con Air is like one of my biggest ones.
You're like, it's a good movie.
It's a good film. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think that's a good concept.
I'm way down for that. My second one is gonna have to be Punisher.
Yeah, Howard Saint.
Yeah, I love the Punisher. He's so... Again, this is a good movie, Ben. I know you got this look in your eye like it's not. I love the Punisher. I think it's actually a good film, and him as the villain, he's pretty damn good. It's the beginning. Actually, it's not the beginning. It's kind of the beginning of his villainship. Right?
Kinda. I mean, Broken Arrow is a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I think he
like
kind of is a
earlier.
villain in this, and so I think
you think he's a villain in this movie?
I think this is what starts the idea that he's going to be kind of
he could be a bad guy,
bad boy sort of.
You see him kill people, and
yeah. I think this starts it, and I think he transitions in the late '90s fully into it because he has that whole run there. But I will say, I think that my number 2 is going to be Face Off.
I love Face Off.
He's so sweet, Sean Archer.
Yeah, he does so well. Both of them actually, and that's probably why the movie's rated so high. Is they actually do both a very good job of acting like each other and like evil, and it's very impressive. My number 1 is Grease.
Okay, I was almost going to go with that as my number 1.
Like I used to watch that movie so much as a kid, so much so that my mom was like, "You need to watch a different movie.
You need to have
so
friends
sick of this.
that are boys, and you need to watch a different film."
No.
So some
Summer 11.
Some honorable mentions for us that before I reveal my final one are going to be we get to talk about From Paris with Love. There's an honorable mention right there.
The Wild Hogs, just because it's created such a great reference for us in the Schmoedown.
Hairspray.
Basically, if anyone old does anything with another man, we just call them Wild Hogs.
Yep. I'm surprised you didn't pick Swordfish.
I thought about Swordfish, but it's a bad movie, and he's not good in it.
Battlefield Earth is an all-timer.
That is truly... Is it just the worst movie, like, ever made? Like, that was the thing for the longest... It was like the worst movie ever made.
I mean, people just
liked the biggest flop.
People liked to make fun of it a lot. I'm gonna go with kind of a surprise third one here, and it's gonna be Primary Colors. Yeah,
I've never even seen it.
It's the one where he plays Bill Clinton,
General's daughter. Oh yeah.
Primary Colors. Get Shorty's another honorable mention. Primary Colors. I remember that movie opens and there's a voiceover and they're talking about
Bill.
They're talking about it's when you watch him with people, it's not what he does with his right hand, it's what he does with his left, and it shows him shaking someone's hand and then putting his hand on their shoulder while he's shaking their hand. And I always thought that was like such a cool line, and probably it's a real thing from Clinton, but like I always thought that was such a cool thing to focus on, because you think about the difference between shaking someone's hand when you go and you kind of shake their hand and like really right. It's such a different kind of
special.
I feel like you're really connecting to me here.
You really care.
I don't know. I thought he did a great job in that movie. I always loved that movie. You know, I haven't seen it recently, so it could be worse than I think. But that was a role that really stuck with me for a long time. So I'll go there. Travolta's been in some sweet movies. I will say.
Everyone's just saying Wild Hogs.
Yeah. Also, Pulp Fiction is arguably his best role. So.
Yeah. Pulp Fiction we just left off the list because it seemed a little redundant. Let's hop into critical and box office. This is where it gets interesting. So, I love this. I mean, obviously it was made in '94, but it only cost $8 million to make by Miramax.
Yeah.
And like you look at it now, and the only reason it would cost astronomically more would be because of paying the actors.
Yeah.
But still, you could just make a movie like this for like $15 million with nobodies.
Well, yeah, and people try, and they don't, and people won't give them the money for it.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually have a conversation about that on the Action Guys about how hard it is to. And that'll be in the future, I think, like in a week or two, that episode will come out. But about how hard it is to just like make an original IP that doesn't come from anything else, get the funding behind it, and actually make money. It happens so rarely. So this movie did it. October 14th, 1994. It grossed $107 million domestic, an additional $106 worldwide, for a grand total of $213 million. And it made its money back its opening weekend. It made $9.3 million. Now, do you think that's because of the star power? Because I don't think it's Tarantino's name yet that sells $200 million worth of tickets.
Definitely Reservoir Dogs had been a big cult hit a few years prior. People really loved that movie, and I think there was some hype behind the idea that's this amazing, cool, violent drama. You know, this director was doing another movie with all these actors that were interesting, and I think the trailer is pretty cool looking.
Yeah, and I think honestly for mid to early '90s, it's a trailer that does more than enough.
Yeah, it tries. It actually tries, and the songs are changing. And then, you know, I have a feeling Willis being involved was probably kind of a big deal. I think he was a pretty big box office draw at the time.
I bet you there was a lot of people that saw Travolta and were like, oh, John's back. You know, like that type of thing.
Well, because the generation that had been like 12 years old when Saturday Night Fever and Grease were out and they were teenagers are now 30 with like probably young families, and they see an advertisement for Travolta looking kind of interesting and weird, and they're hearing that this movie should be good, and they're like, oh, you know, maybe we should see this movie.
Who would that be like for us?
Who like kind of came out and then went away?
Yeah, it'd be Cage, right?
Yeah, I think if Cage was in like a really cool movie like
popped
this,
up all of a sudden all grizzled.
Yeah, if we saw like a, you know, the new Taylor Sheridan movie or something like that from somebody who we like thought had some real credibility, Denis Villeneuve or someone, and like Cage was in it and he looked sweet and like we were hearing good things, we would probably be like, yeah, we should see that movie.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I'm super medium on Mandy, by the way.
I still haven't watched it.
I watched it and it was just like, I was so whatever about it.
Really?
I think it was way too overhyped.
Yeah.
I think I need to go back and check it out again. Anyway, 8.8 on IMDb, which I'm okay with an 8.8, but what that means is an 8.8 by millions of viewers over 24 years means that it's number 8 all time.
So this is kind of what I was trying to allude to a second ago about this impact on film. And this is the unfortunate dark side of that, which is like there's something about the way that like young male movie fans like cool violent crime stories.
Yeah.
There's just something about that, and it's a very like traditional kind of boring played out genre if you do it badly. It's just that this is the movie that created the template. So every single person in the last 20 years that rates a movie on IMDb who's like anywhere between like 12 and 15 and 18 years old, before you even really realize what good films are, you can watch this movie at like 14 and just be like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
And you can still do that. You can still go today as a 14-year-old and watch this. You can still do that with like Fight Club. You can still do that with these certain films that really stick with you.
But it's way harder to go watch like A Beautiful Boy, a movie about like a father and his son's journey into sobriety, and like great actors, like beautiful direction, incredible.
Right.
So much harder to watch Fruitvale Station than it is to watch Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is just palatable. It's got cool music, it's got hitmen, it's got violence, it's got sex, it's got like awesome dialogue.
It's even got like a happy ending.
Yeah.
As weird as that is.
It just makes you feel cool for liking it.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's kind of created this monster, which is that like it gets a rating like that. It's really, but on the other hand, maybe it deserves it. It's just we're all jaded.
I mean, it does.
You know?
It definitely does deserve it because, like, you know, a movie like The Town and Drive come along, and you're like, holy shit, someone did it again. Again.
Right.
They didn't do it. They did it again because of Pulp Fiction. Because, like, Drive is just like Pulp Fiction, but only one man's story.
Yeah.
It's cool and it's sexy and it's fun. The music's cool. It's super violent, and the things that people say is like, you know, you lie to me again, I'm gonna hurt you real bad. You're like,
yeah.
Who really talks like that? But like, he does in this movie because he's awesome, you know?
I mean, even, dude, Grosse Point Blank 2 years later, 3
Grosse
years
Point's
later
so good.
is great, but it's like the same idea. What's it really like to be a hitman?
Yeah. And
even
they just lean
hitmen
into the
go to their
romance.
high school reunions.
Yes.
You know, like, right? It's like there are just so many movies that are just lifting. And or maybe it was that people were trying and this one succeeded, so then that genre became a thing people did. But there are books written about Tarantino and the impact that his films have had on filmmaking on the whole. It's like just a thing. So that's why this movie gets the rating it does, in my opinion. If you guys disagree or you think that it deserves it, leave those thoughts in the chat. Let us know. Leave it in the comments below if you're watching this, and tweet at us if you're listening. So,
94% by all critics, 92 by top, 96 by the audience. Follows the formula, and honestly, any of those scores would be more than happy to be with. And of course, as we mentioned before, it won for best writing at the Oscars. What's your favorite line?
There's so many good ones.
So many good ones. I'm just gonna say mine real quick.
Yeah.
They're so simple, but it's disco and 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
You like her little like weird thing she says?
Just the intro of Mia Wallace is that. It's the note, the writing, the cursive writing, and her voiceover, and then the disco, and it's just like, because how do you make an entrance to someone that you've talked about the whole movie?
Yeah.
Someone that a big dude has been thrown out a window over, a foot massage, what's all this hype and mystery behind her?
Yeah.
And then you meet her and you're like, she better be fucking amazing. And just the writing of her entrance and the look, as iconic as it is, like, there's just something about it that you're like, fuck. That's the coolest way anyone could talk.
There are 10 lines in this movie at least that every one of them I could just like. Watching it again though, I just kept laughing. There's so many. It's almost like I want to give my favorite line from every character. Because just, I mean, even simple ones like Zed's dead, baby. Just like shit that you just love to hear people say. It's just so cool. I remember I always loved Harvey Keitel's line. Let's not start sucking each other's dicks yet. That's one of my favorite lines. I've said that in life many times. It's like one of my favorites. I always thought that was really, really funny. I also love incredibly like uncomfortably gross Tarantino using the N-word a lot.
Oh yeah.
But I love when before that happens, when Jules is talking about his coffee. You have to fucking tell me how good my coffee is. I buy the gourmet stuff so I can taste it. I love that whole thing. It's so good.
Yeah. I love. Oh yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Ain't the same fucking ballpark. Ain't the same fucking league. Ain't even the same sport. You're like, God, I want to say that now.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say that, and then I love the other one. Who told you? They.
Yeah, they.
They talk a lot, don't they? They certainly do. It's just like such a. It's just. Again, you talk about exposition and how you don't need it, and how like you've already had it. They've already talked about it. He doesn't need to get into it. It was Jules, a hitman. It was a story from all everyone. It's just they. And that's enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love when Eric Stoltz is like, "Don't come here, prank caller."
Yeah. He's like, what? Excuse me, drugs? No. Are you calling from a cell phone? Yeah, so good. I'm trying to see if there's anything in here.
There's just an endless number of good lines in this movie.
You took both the Denuzos. Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
Yeah.
I really like when Uma tells Belford, shout out, when Uma telling him they're gonna dance. Yeah, Mr. Marsellus Wallace, you're my husband, your employer.
Yeah.
Let's see. The cigarette looking cool. I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? Yeah, there's just everything. The walk-in speech someone wrote, and that's the thing is, even though the speech is like, for me, it kind of takes me out of the movie.
Yeah,
it's still
the speech is amazing.
It's incredible.
It's the one that says "badass motherfucker" on it.
Yeah,
is amazing. I mean, like this movie is responsible for just so much. There's so many things about it that stick with you, and so I think that's a testament.
What people realize as writers is that you could write the coolest fucking line ever and not have it take away from the movie, but add to it. Whereas, like, so many times people now try to write that line that, or have that Diego Luna moment.
Yeah, right.
To, like, make something cooler than it is.
I love that I've referenced that enough times to you now. Just like,
I know.
Why are you doing that?
You need to watch the movie. Which I still haven't seen.
It's not good. Let's get into the next bit of the show, guys. We're going to talk about AMA question. Ryan Permisson has the question. What is your favorite scene and lines from the movie? I think we've kind of answered that between fist bump and line. I mean... Is your single favorite scene the same? It's the dance?
It's the dance. I mean, it's got to just be the whole Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega interaction. Like, if we're going to talk favorite line and scene, that would cover every. Like, if I could only have that. And you even said, you want that movie so badly, and it's never been made, the Vincent Vega, Mia Wallace movie.
I had sort of forgotten that when they get back to her apartment and she's, like, drinks, that there was so much sexual tension at that point.
Yeah.
I had sort of forgotten that he goes in the bathroom and has to give himself a pep talk.
Same.
Because it's like it seems like there's no possible chance he would ever put himself in the position to even like fuck with it because he's such a professional.
Yeah, and the whole thing from Jules in the beginning.
Yeah, but somehow he does, and they have such a good time, and like it's also I think a great one of the things I took away from that I loved so much was like it's a bit of a reminder that you can go out and have like this amazing romantic experience with someone that doesn't necessarily end in dating or sex.
Right.
Like someone of the opposite sex, you can go have the most like tension-filled, flirty, incredible, like, and not, I shouldn't even say the opposite sex. You can have a romantic moment with somebody that you're attracted to of the same sex, if that's what you're into, and it can be this incredible experience that doesn't have to.
It just lives once.
Right. It's like, and that's what's so cool about the way that it ends.
Yeah.
Is that it's like they had an amazing first date.
Like, what a night.
That will never consummate in anything.
Yes. I agree, because the shot of her walking away all like the walk of shame, as we call it in this day, but it's like she's just super fucked up, haggard, shoes aren't on, she's wobbling, you're like, yeah, and that's the end.
Yeah.
And there's something really beautiful and poetic about that.
It's like the overdose was the sex.
Yeah.
And now they're both coming down from it.
Yes, exactly.
I just loved it. It was this time through, it just was like, wow, like I just had never remembered the level of chemistry that was there. I always just remembered it as a great scene.
And it's never they never have it together. There's never a moment of like, should we or shouldn't we? It's all by themselves.
Right. The one moment is when she's like, what was that, and she's like, I don't know what that was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Thanks, Ryan, so much for throwing your question up there. Remember, guys, as always, Action Army fan group and the Team Action, or the Action Movie Anatomy fan page, those are both on Facebook. Join both of them and throw your comments, questions up in there. We always try to pull our comments from there. Of course, you can also put them on Twitter at Team Action Show.
Yeah, be sure to check out next Friday, the 21st of December, the Spectacular, which is it's like WrestleMania for the Schmoedown. It's a gigantic event. It's so exciting. I can't wait for it to air. I'm actually going to be playing in a match there against the Shire Wolves with Who's the Boss, which is my Anarchy team. So go check that out. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch, guys. I cannot wait to see it.
I'll be. I won't be there, but I wanted to win the belt with you so badly, but I'm totally okay with you winning with Riley. I love Mark Riley. I think he's a great dude, and yeah. So
I really want to.
Wait, were you saying that just because of Spectacular? We also have an episode coming out on the Action Guys.
Yeah, we have an episode coming out next Friday on the Action Guys. It'll actually be the same day on the Collider Podcast Network, as we have the show now that we do over there called the Action Guys. It's a little bit different than this show. This show is so focused on one movie. That show, we kind of take ideas and we talk about sort of whole concepts. So an episode that'll be coming out soon is the 5 action comedies you need to see before you die.
Yes.
We have a whole episode about the ranking, the definitive ranking of every Spider-Man movie ever. We have another one we're going to be doing about sort of almost like an oral history of movie trailers and the ones that we love the most. We're not totally sure of the format yet, but
yeah. And then I think the one that's airing next Friday, if we're going to try to do,
is going to be like an oral history of Team Action and the Schmoedown.
Yeah, and like
sort of where it came from and like how it started here and some of the most memorable matches and just the fact that you got so crazy busy with this other job at the same time Anarchy started.
Yeah.
And so you actually haven't been around that much while Who's the Boss has been on a run.
Well, it's crazy because we both kind of like hit these insane levels of like superstardom in the Schmoedown, but completely separate of one another, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah, right before the Anarchy stuff started, you had this insane run where you beat Dan Murrell and you beat Mark Riley and you played Roca.
Lost to Roca.
But I mean, you played three of the greatest players of all time.
3 two-time champions.
As your only singles matches you've ever played.
Yeah, and then I get booked on these gigs and I kind of disappear, and then Who's the Boss and your singles run, and both of them in general, like they just kind of like went like, you are everywhere on that Facebook fan group now.
Yeah, right now it's a cool moment.
It's crazy how it comes and goes.
I'm looking forward to crushing the Shire Wolves and getting these belts,
Hey, man.
Avenging our loss.
I'll shine them for you.
Yeah. Goddamn right you will.
I hate it.
All right, guys. So that's going to wrap us up there. Last thing to talk about here on the show is going to be there are 3 action movie categories. I think this one's a pretty easy answer.
It's interesting. I mean, I thought so too. And it looked like a handful of people in here actually said it would be tough. Guys, if you want to throw those back up, if you believe it's totally legitimate, ridiculously legitimate, or totally ridiculous, I think it's totally legit.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's no question. Totally legitimate. I don't even think we have to like really break them down. It just seems very clear to me that it is a totally legitimate.
You couldn't have that scene be as effective as it is if the movie felt ridiculous.
Yeah.
The overdose scene would just be like, here we go.
Yeah,
you
right.
know? Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen? Of course, but it's like, no, she's not going to die.
You thought.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So, guys, that's going to wrap us up. We just have one last thing left to do, and that's the pitch. So, coming up next week is our final episode of 2018, right?
Yeah, I think it is our final episode.
We are
of
doing
the year.
a real show next week, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're live.
I think it's going to be a live, actual Thursday show. It's a very special show for a very special fan, friend, supporter, everything we would call him. That's for Richard Eric Jarvie. It's a birthday gift for his generalship.
Yes.
We're going to be doing Revenge of the Sith.
You are the chosen one.
We're going to be covering Revenge of the Sith next week.
So first of all, Richard, we got to salute you, of course, our brother. Boom. And this movie is so ridiculously good and bad at the same time. It's just going to be us screaming the last 10 minutes for the whole show.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited for this movie. I remember when the trailer for episode 6 came out. I remember it's a really good trailer. It starts out with episode 3. You're right.
This guy doesn't know Star Wars.
I remember when the trailer came out for it, and it starts with Alec Guinness with an Obi-Wan clip.
Oh,
it shows the Lucasfilm thing.
Yeah.
For thousands of generations, the Jedis were the signs of peace. And then I can't remember how it goes, but I just remember when it came out, I was super excited.
Yeah. Even after being completely betrayed by the second one, we were all still so excited for the third. And honestly, it's kind of sweet. It's like a sweet movie.
The final 10 minutes is great.
Yeah, the final 10 minutes is excellent.
Yeah.
Padme.
Ooh.
Oh my god, this episode's gonna be wonderful. So guys, that's what we're doing next week. Again, make sure to follow us online on Twitter at AndrewGuy, at Ben Bateman Media. Is there anything else?
You want to do an early Hayden Christensen impression? You're tearing me apart, Padme.
Padme, I love you.
I'm not sure which one we're doing there. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Revenge of the Sith. Bye everybody.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.